Yeah, the next most common question farmers ask is, what's all this fuss about poor old CO2? It's not a poisonous gas, it's not toxic, we breathe it in and out, we need it for our plants to grow. So why the fuss? Why is everyone picking on CO2? And I guess there's a little story I like to tell, I guess, about John Tyndall, who discovered, did some key research. And now this is back in the 1850s. So when we were having the gold rush in Victoria, over in the UK, John Tyndall was a physicist, and he was looking at, there was a bit of a story at the time where we get energy from the sun during the day. What the sun hits gets warm, and when the sun sets at night, that heat from the landscape should just radiate back out to space. Now, if the scientists at the time were doing some calculations, saying actually when we wake up in the morning, it's 20 to 30 degrees warmer than it should be, because if all of that heat just radiated out to space overnight, it would be freezing. The science challenge was saying, well, there's something that must be trapping some of that heat overnight. So they're observing that, they're saying there's something that is affecting how much of the day's heat either radiates out to space or gets trapped. So John Tyndall did the experiment where he got the gases from the atmosphere and passed heat radiation through them. And he thought, oh, well, I'll keep this simple. 98 or 99% of the atmosphere is either nitrogen gas or oxygen, and I'll get rid of the other gases, those impurities. And he tested nitrogen and oxygen gas, passed the heat, and it just slipped straight through them. So he concluded if our atmosphere was just nitrogen and oxygen gas, then we would freeze every night. So it was back to these impurities, and he got them and tested them, passed the heat radiation into those, and they absorbed the heat. And basically what he discovered was the greenhouse gases, and that's CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, water vapour. And anything, if you think of it, nitrogen gas is just two nitrogen atoms stuck together, oxygen is two oxygen atoms stuck together, and the greenhouse gases all have extra arms and legs on them, and they trap infrared radiation, they trap heat. So the broader story of greenhouse was that if we put more emissions in the atmosphere, those gases that trap heat, eventually things should start warming up. And I guess what the observation has been that while there's been some warming in the inner atmosphere, some of the key atmospheric physicists, and certainly NASA, are measuring what's happening in the outer stratosphere. And what they're noticing is actually things are getting cooler in our outer stratosphere. So they're saying if we were getting more energy from the sun, then the stratosphere would be warming as well as under here. But they're saying we're not. It's getting cooler out here and getting warmer in here. We're basically changing the ratio of energy in and out. The sun's still giving us the same energy, we're just slowly letting less escape. And that's why that's the theory of greenhouse gases. And I guess that broader story from since the 50s, and this is temperatures across Australia, this shows individual years, but the bars show decadal changes, but since the 50s, largely things have been getting warmer. And wherever we travel around Victoria, we certainly see these for the last 100 years at different locations, that it's pretty common that the last decade has been the warmest that anyone's had to farm through for the last 100 years. It's a pretty hard thing for us to notice. Average temperatures really don't tell us much. Like last spring, it was a warmer than average spring. I think, September temperatures basically happened in August. October temperatures happened in September, and November temperatures in October. But our temperatures go up and down so much each day that averages are lost on us. But that's basically what's been happening. And for Victoria, our fastest warming season is spring. It's been spring where there's been warming the quickest. So in the last 10 years, we've had 6 or 7 springs that have been between 2 and 3 degrees warmer than average. And that affects farming because it effectively, cuts out the season, especially if we've got dry soils. If we've got plenty of moisture, we don't tend to notice a warmer spring. But if it's a bit more marginal, a warmer spring basically helps finish the season.